The term left in a political sense actually didn't come into America until the 1920s, 1930s. So it was really brought in by the communists and the socialists. And the reason is that the term left is a European term. And it has to do with parliamentary systems where you have left, right, and center. In the United States, we have a two-party system. So people didn't talk about the left. But if you look at the history of the United States in relationship to Europe, of course, we had a left in the United States in the 19th century. The fact that we didn't use the term left and the Europeans used the term left is not what's really important. They were doing the same thing. And what they were doing was trying to turn the democratic revolutions, the revolutions for self-government, in a more egalitarian direction. They were raising the issues of social equality, of poverty, the working class, but in the United States especially, of racial equality. That's how I understand the term left. I understand that since the rise of modern governments, we're committed to freedom and we're committed to equality. But what does that really mean? Pushing the questions of freedom, not we're already in a free society, we don't want to have discrimination. Well, really, what is freedom about? And pushing the question of equality. We don't want to discriminate against women. We don't want to discriminate against blacks. But what does that take not to discriminate against blacks? That's, to me, is what the role of the left has been, to raise that question. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion in the philosophical literature about these questions, but I don't think that you can really understand the questions properly without really understanding the history. In America, in particular, the nation has a telos. It has had moments where it has to come to grips with itself, where it has to decide on a new direction. And I think we're approaching such a moment now in the United States. That's why I wrote the book. I think it's not a question of just an economic recovery. It's really a question of deciding what we want the nation to be, as were other previous moments in American history. And those are basically historical questions. We have to think about these things historically, where we have been, where whole people have been, and where we're going. Yes, absolutely. Well, that is very deliberate. And the distinction is very simply, we can speak about the left in the United States today as referring to those people who self-identify as the left. So that would be Dissent magazine, in England, New Left Review. In these times in the United States, people might speak about a left wing in the labor movement or something like that. But I'm trying to get at a more general idea of what a left might look like. And I'm also trying to separate this idea from socialism per se. Socialism was one moment in the history of the left, a very important moment. And we still have to think about capitalism, but it doesn't define a left. So it's a broader moment, and I think it's by looking at it historically, and also seeing that it had particular moments, and that it's an episodic history. It's a discontinuous history. And if we create what I call a left today, it's going to be new. Well, I mean, insofar as we have a left today, it dates from the 60s. It's quite continuous. The left of what I call the left of the 60s were the people who call themselves the movement during the 1960s. So we're going to have a huge cultural upheaval during that period. It had to do with the transformation of capitalism, with mass consumer society, with globalization, with TV and video, with the pill. All of these things were going to occur with or without a left. But the left was trying to push that whole transformation in a more egalitarian direction. They were trying to connect it up with, for example, people said, I cannot be free if the people in Mississippi are not free, or I cannot be free as long as we're bombing Vietnam. And I think that kind of consciousness it still survives in America. The left was the radical wing. Now, it was not the feminist movement, but it was the radical wing of the feminist movement, the part of the feminist movement that was trying to connect feminism up to the civil rights movement, to the anti-war movement, and social justice in general. And the same thing with the gay movement and so forth. These movements had radical wings, and they still do. And that's what I mean by the continuity between the new left and the left today. Very significant. I mean, it put the issue of class back into American discourse. It is a movement that the whole idea of the 99% was a brilliant stroke. That understanding, it transformed political discourse in the United States. It transformed the way Obama speaks. He basically adopted a lot of its rhetoric in the last year. So it's extremely important. I've been in the demonstrations, and I know a lot of the activists. They're kids, you know. They do speak the language of the new left. They understand the most important thing that really marks the new left is that the radical movement itself has to be egalitarian, that you have to pay attention to sexism and racism and so forth within the ranks of the radical movement itself, letting everyone speak, these kinds of things, which can be very tiresome, but are extremely important in the long run. But at the same time, in many ways, similar to where the new left left off, Occupy Wall Street doesn't really have what I would consider a systematic analysis of American society, of the global situation, of American foreign policy. I would like to see Occupy Wall Street demonstrate at the Democratic Convention on behalf of gaining 99 at-large seats to represent the 99%. And then I would like to see Occupy Wall Street mature to the point that it participates in writing the planks at the Democratic platform. So that would broaden it from the simple issue of Wall Street to engage in questions of foreign policy, questions of education policy, and so forth. To me, it was a real missed opportunity. I believe, and I recognize there's a lot of room for disagreement here, and many people disagree with me, but I believe that individuals make a huge difference in history. Roosevelt could easily have gone in a right-wing direction in 1932, and as so many people did in the 1930s in almost every European country. And I think that Obama had a great deal of choice as to what kind of politics that he was going to express. And the whole idea of reaching beyond right and left and finding agreement with a right wing that has been for a long time so destructive, instead of trying to build some kind of progressive center, I think that was a mistaken idea.